What is up, everyone? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. Today, we are going through the male UFC fighters of 2022. Our top five, of course. It's been a fantastic year for the UFC. Um, they are the number one organization. They are the premier organization. We had a little bit of returning back to regular ways with the crowds, with UFC Paris, London on two occasions. Of course, the pay-per-views was sold out all year, I believe. Um, it was much more the same from the UFC. Of course, those Apex cards sort of died out on us now. They were fantastic during the pandemic between 2020 and 2021. They were fantastic, but now when you have them mixed in with the crowds, there seems to be, you can see there's a buzz that's lost in the Apex. Of course, being the case, there not been 10 to 15,000 people in the arena. You don't get that buzz. You don't get that electricity that you get. So it's difficult and has been difficult to really pinpoint whose performances have stood out. But we've gone through the top five, and this is just a personal opinion of who thought had been the top five fighters of 2022. Now, of course, our first one, this was a tough one to really pick. The four following this was somewhat easy to just find their position. But I was going with Roman Dolidze. Obviously, Roman Dolidze this year has really pinpointed himself as a middleweight contender. I believe he's 7th or 8th in the rankings now, of course, following his win against Jack Manson, where he, used that fantastically creative cast slicer, turned it into a sort of top control for him, of course, took the back of Jack Manson and just, pummeled Jack Manson until the ref stepped in with a fantastic TKO victory. It was a brilliant win for Roman Dolidze and really put himself on the map. And this year was exactly that. It was a year he put himself onto the map. I remember earlier this year, following the win, that he gave thanks and credit to Michael Bisping for pushing him over the line. And I think there was a point where Bisping had said he was quite boring because he went to a lot of decisions. But that certainly got stopped this year with 3 wins, 3 finishes, and 3 TKOs really, and a fantastic year for him. Of course, he started the year off against Kyle Daukaus, got him in the near clinches, first round finish. Phil Hort. Again, first round finish with the hooks, with another TKO win for him there. Of course, the big win at the end of the year in Florida, I believe, against Jack Manson. It was a fantastic performance. The only time he went beyond the first round this year was against Jack Manson, and Jack Manson was he's called the Joker with it, and he was the Joker with this division at one point, very close to a title shot. But he's had a rough ride. But Roman Dolidze has certainly shown that he's going into the new year as potentially 2 wins away from a title shot. Obviously, with Alex Pereira now, we've got to work out where Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya is at. But then obviously you got the rest of Jared Cannonier, Dolidze himself. Strickland is in there. Derek Brunson's in there. Dricus du Plessis is now in there. Obviously, we don't know where Darren Till is right now, but he would. I mean, I put Darren Till more on the Jack Manson side than the Kelvin Gastelum side right now, based on form. But he has potential to be in there for sure for 2023. But yeah, Roman Dolidze took 5th on the list of male fighter for 2022. Now going in at 4th place is Islam Makhachev. Now this one was a difficult one for Islam Makhachev, and maybe the fighter that comes next maybe be ruled a little bit more due to the emotion of the event. But Islam Makhachev had a fantastic 2022. Now of course he started the year off against Bobby Green. Now that was a late replacement for Beneil Dariush, who was supposed to step in against Islam Makhachev, and Dariush was supposed to be the first sort of real test for Islam Makhachev, the first top sort of 6-7 opponent for Makhachev, and be that building block for him to claim the title shot. But of course, Dariush withdrew, and Bobby Green stepped in, and he absolutely dominated Bobby Green, finishing him in the first round, showcasing that he is certainly top 15 level, and there is a very high level competitor. And then, of course, he gets a title shot in Fight Island at Abu Dhabi against Charles Oliveira. Now, going into that lot of fight, it was very much not a 50-50, but he was either on one side or the other. Either he hadn't faced enough competition to warrant a title shot, or he's going to walk through Charles Oliveira and take the title from him. And it's more so that side that got it right. It was an absolute, cracking performance from Islam Makhachev. One that we was aware he was capable of, but probably not expecting to perform again, because we just hadn't seen him perform like that against top 10. Obviously, he did beat Dan Hooker, and that was probably the most dominating performance we've seen in terms of competition of course, but Dan Hooker did take that on short notice, so there's a little bit of sort of a caveat on that performance. But he looked fantastic against Charles Oliveira. Now, Oliveira was number 2 pound for pound at the time. Of course, he wasn't the champion at the time, was he? The champion had a name, but of course the belt, wasn't linked to Charles Oliveira when he lost it on the scales against Justin Gaethje. And it was an absolutely stellar performance from Islam Makhachev from start to finish. The way he jumped into that arm triangle was absolutely phenomenal, and one of the best I've seen. Just the relentlessness, the fearlessness to jump in there with someone who's got as many submission wins as Charles Oliveira does. The presence that Oliveira has done, we've seen him rock, but we've seen him come back. So for Islam Makhachev just to believe in himself, understand the positions he's in, and just take it like that, and took away Charles Oliveira's reign, was absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, he's going to go into 23 as the lightweight champion, looking to defend it against Alexander Volkanovski in Perth at UFC 284, and potentially finish the year as the pound-for-pound number 1. It was a fantastic 2022 for Islam Makhachev, and respect needs to be put on the champion's name, in my opinion. Of course, as it does Leon Edwards. Now, Leon Edwards does take my third position. Again, him and Islam Makhachev is a bit of a knife edge, in my opinion, for those performances. Of course, Makhachev has the sort of the volume of fights, having fought twice this year. Of course, Leon Edwards was only scheduled once. But it was an absolutely cracking performance, wasn't it? Pound for pound, headshot, done. We all remember that phrase. We all remember the ending. We all remember John Anik's dulcet tones properly making that clip historic. John Anik is the best in the business when it comes to commentary. We've got Brad Wharton on Cage Wars, but I believe is up there also. And it's a fantastic job that John Anik does. Brendan Fitzgerald also very good. But John Anik just seems to be able to get the moment, and he got the moment perfectly, saying, this is not the cloth from which Leon Edwards is built from, just as that head kick lands. Now, it wasn't the best performance, it wasn't the most complete performance, but it was a performance that probably replicated Leon Edwards' career. Fantastic at the start, obviously, became the first official takedown on Kamaru Usman's record. Against Kamaru, of course, his first official takedown. And Leon had a fantastic round in that first round. You're thinking, okay, what have we got here? Of course, the rematch was a lot closer, and Kamaru Usman got his hand raised on that night. But you can see both of those journeys and paths that they've both been on since that fight was phenomenal. Obviously, Kamaru Usman had built himself up to be the pound-for-pound number 1, the welterweight champion, defeated the likes of Tyron Woodley, Covington twice, Jorge Masvidal twice, Gilbert Burns, and Leon Edwards was one of those, maybe because he had the hard road, he had to take the long road. He had that performance against Nate Diaz where he got clipped in the final 30 seconds, which is not what he needed. Had it happened in the first 30 seconds of the first round, I think the opinion of that fight would have been a lot different. Because it happened at the end, it was the last in memory. And I think a lot of people are thinking, if this Kamaru Usman, who has knocked out Jorge Masvidal, who has finished Gilbert Burns, who has been looking like as good a boxer as he is wrestler, lands on Leon, then it could be a short night through him. But Leon showed the heart, he showed the character, he showed the grit that he has done throughout his whole career. He's always been doubted. He's always been the one that's been in the shadow, whether it's been of Darren Till in the UK, while Darren Till was in that welterweight division, of course. Leon Edwards never really got a shine. Now, maybe that's something to do with Edwards not being the best talker or maybe not the best talker, but the most outspoken character. He lets his work do the talking. And in Utah, in Salt Lake City, on that night, his work done the talking, and he came back in that 5th round, minute left on the clock, and, gave us one of the best head kick knockouts the sport has ever seen, and gave the UK their 2nd UFC champion, alongside Michael Bisping. So maybe there is a bit of heart and emotion into that. Again, I don't think he started the year because he only had one performance, but what a stellar performance he had. And to defeat the pound-for-pound, which is why I like to put him above Islam Makhachev. Obviously, Makhachev defeated the pound-for-pound number 2 fighter. But again, very close, and one of those performances and instances that UK MMA will never forget. Now, going on to second was, of course, Alex Pereira. Now, Alex Pereira became the middleweight champion, defeating former foe and former opponent, that time in kickboxing, of course, Israel Adesanya. These two met finally in MMA at UFC 281 at MSG. And he did it again, didn't he? He went 3-0 against Israel Adesanya, getting that 5th round TKO After what was a very close back and forth fight, you thought Israel Adesanya maybe in the third and fourth was overtaking the fight using that champion mentality that he's possessed, that sort of experience and ability, because he's been on those big stages in MMA, particularly more than Alex Pereira has been. But Alex Pereira was phenomenal. He took everything Adesanya had and more and came back and was too much for him. And of course, he was 3-0 this year. Let's not forget. Started the year off with a decision against Bruno Silva. Of course, knocked out Sean Strickland at UFC 276 with that vicious left hook in the first round. And then, of course, took the throne of the middleweights, and has put himself in a very good position, for 2023. Now, whether that's an Israel Adesanya rematch next, who knows? Maybe it's Robert Whittaker. Now the Robert Whittaker fight's not happening with Paulo Costa. Obviously, you got to see what happens between Glover and Jamal Hill. Maybe if Glover retires, does Alex Pereira then maybe look at light heavyweight as an option? Maybe go for champ status. That'd be impressive in your first 5 fights, wouldn't it? Let's not forget he's only been in the UFC for 4 fights and he's already the champion of the middleweight division. Whether you want to say, he's been given not easy opponents, but again, he's been given the fast track. Now that could have gone very wrong. That could have gone wrong against Sean Strickland. That could have gone wrong against Israel Adesanya. But he didn't. He got the job done and he showed why he's at the top of the tree. Unfortunately, he's just not at the top of the tree in my top 5. Because that can only go to one man. And of course, the man probably had the most perfect 2022. And of course, Alex Volkanovski. Now, the featherweight champion did not put a foot wrong in 2022. He started the year off, again, back in February against the Korean Zombie with a stellar performance. Again, didn't get a foot wrong. Got the fight stopped. Into the 4th round. Obviously, Herb Dean pulling him away after what was a very one-sided performance for Alex Volkanovski. And, of course, Korean Zombie is probably past his best. But he deserves his flowers and his respect also. And of course, he stepped in there as a willing opponent, a live opponent, but Alex Volkanovski showed that there's levels to this game, as he then did against Max Holloway, and that's the real impressive thing for myself. Of course, he's 2-0 against Max Holloway going into that fight. There's enough contestation to say that it could be 1-1, it could be 0-2 to Max Holloway, and Alex Volkanovski didn't let those sort of the questions really bother him, and he showed another level to his game as well, because he looked even then a level above Max Holloway. And Max Holloway showing his levels above the likes of Yair Rodriguez and Calvin Kattar in their fights. But Volkanovski showed why he's the pound-for-pound number 1 going into 2023, and he had a fantastic, almost perfect run in 2022. It would have been interesting had he fought the 3rd time, because of course he was the backup for Max Holloway and Oliveira, had one of those two not been able to compete. And it just shows you the character of the guy. He wants to be the best. Currently, pound for pound, he is the best, but he's going to put that to the test against Islam Makhachev at UFC 284 when he fights for the lightweight championship. Now, of course, that is a huge task. I think it's a bigger task than what would have been Oliveira. And of course, seeing the performance that Makhachev did against Oliveira doesn't put the favorability on the side of Volkanovski, but that's where Volkanovski really relishes, when he is the underdog, when he is the less favourable option to pick. He comes out and gives us a war, and he goes through the fire. And should he become champ, it would be a very interesting story for what 2023 holds for the current featherweight champion. Of course, on that night, the interim featherweight title is up between Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez. So, of course, whether he wins or loses, his next opponent's probably going to be put on the table in front of him immediately after UFC 284. But yes, Alex Volkanovski is my pick for Fighter of the Year. He had a fantastic 2022. I'm excited to see what happens for him in 2023. And let us know your comments down, or your thoughts in the comments down below. Who was your Fighter of the Year? Should it have been Islam Makhachev? Should it have been Leon Edwards for his head kick knockout? Could it have been Alex Pereira for the way he stormed through the middleweight division? Or is Volkanovski the man? He's a pound-for-pound fighter this year and deserves a lot more respect than he's currently getting for the performance he did. Specifically, more so, the performance against Max Holloway. It's one of the best. We know how much Max Holloway's done into 30-45. Max Holloway, the way he did, was absolutely phenomenal. But yes, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to drop us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that CageChat MMA. And I'll see you guys on the next video.